Sienna God, hello all. Oshisahiya, good evening and what thank you for watching. So this is day 16, part B of reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an inquiry into values by Robert M. Persig. Phaedrus read on through line after line, verse after verse of this, watched them match, fit, slip into place. Exactly. This was what he meant. This was what he'd been saying all along, only poorly, mechanicalistically. There was nothing vague or inexact about this book. It was as precise and definite as it could be. It was what he had been saying, only in a different language with different roots and origins. He was from another valley, seeing what was in this valley, not now as a story told by strangers, but as a part of the valley he was from. He was seeing it all. He had broken the code. He read on, line after line, page after page, not a discrepancy. What he had been talking about all the time as quality was here, the Tao. The great central generating force of all religions, Oriental and Occidental, past and present, all knowledge, everything. Then his mind's eye looked up and caught his own image and realized where he was and what he was seeing, and I don't know what really happened. But now the slippage that Phaedrus had felt earlier, the internal parting of his mind, suddenly gathered momentum as do the rocks at the top of a mountain. Before he could stop it, the sudden accumulated mass of awareness began to grow and grow into an avalanche of thought and awareness out of control. With each additional growth of the downward tearing mass, loosening hundreds of times its volume, and then that mass uprooting hundreds of times its volume more, and then hundreds of times that, on and on, wider and broader, until there was nothing left to stand, no more anything. It all gave way from under him. That book, I literally want to read it. Golly. 2,400-year-old Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu. Or Lao Tzu, I should say. Anyway, that was just incredibly cool. Copied it by hand. Did you ever attempt to try and copy the dictionary by hand? Or like the Bible or like anything, you know, that was like not just your run-of-the-mill, like super simple something. It was just doing something to make you think and learn along the way. Anyway, something that you would have probably like glossed over or zoned out to, but when you're forcing yourself to like write word for word, letter for letter, symbol for symbol, it like really helps drive it home. Now, I don't want to write the Tao Te Ching like that. I'm just saying that's incredibly cool because I've written the Bible before because I was like having a rough go at it. I've read it 3 times, but I was like, let me just start by filling up some spirals by writing it. Anyway, chapter 21. You're not very brave, are you? Chris says. No, I answer and pull the rind of a slice of salami between my teeth to remove the meat. But you'd be astonished at how smart I am. We're down quite a way from a summit now, and the mixed pines and leafy underbrush are much higher here and more closed in than they were at this altitude on the other side of the canyon. Evidently, more rain gets into this canyon. I gulped down a large quantity of water from a pot Chris had filled at the stream here. Then, look at him. I can see by his expression that he's resigned himself to going down, and there's no need to lecture him or argue. We finished the lunch off with a part of a bag of candy, wash it down with another pot of water, and lay back on the ground for a rest. Mountain spring water has the best taste in the world. After a while, Chris says, I can carry a heavier load now. Oh, welcome to the party, right? Anyway, are you sure? Sure, I'm sure, he says, a little haughtily. Gratefully, I transfer some of the heavier stuff to his pack, and we put the packs on, wriggling through the shoulder straps on the ground and then standing up. I can feel the difference in weight. He can be considerate when he's in the mood. From here on, it looks like a slow descent. This slope has evidently been logged, and there's a lot of underbrush higher than our heads that makes it slow going. We'll have to work our way around it. What I want to do now in the Chautauqua is get away from intellectual abstractions of an extremely general nature and into some solid, practical day-to-day information. And I'm not quite sure how to go about this. Excuse me. One thing about pioneers that you don't hear mentioned is that they are invariably, by their nature, mess makers. They go foraging ahead, seeing only their noble, distant goal, and never notice any of the crud and debris they leave behind them. Someone else gets to clean that up, and it's not a very glamorous or interesting job. You have to depress for a while before you can go down to doing it. Then, once you have depressed it into a really low-key mood, it isn't so bad. To discover a metaphysical relationship of quality and the Buddha at some mountaintop of personal experience is very spectacular and very unimportant. If that were all this Chautauqua was about, I should be dismissed. What's important is the relevance of such a discovery to all the valleys of this world and all the dull, dreary jobs of monotonous years that await all of us in them. Sylvia knew what she was talking about the first day when she noticed all those people come in the other way. What did she call it? A funeral procession. The task now is to get back down to that procession with a wider kind of understanding that exists there now. First of all, I should say that I don't know whether Phaedrus's claim that quality is the Tao is true. I don't know of any way of testing it for truth, since all he did was simply compare his understanding of one mystic entity with another. He certainly thought they were the same, but he may not have completely understood what quality was, or more likely, he may not have understood the Tao. He certainly was no sage, and there's plenty of advice for sages in that book he would have done well to heed. I think, furthermore, that all his metaphysical mountain climbing did absolutely nothing to further either our understanding of what quality is or of what the Tao is. Not a thing. That sounds like an overwhelming rejection of what he thought and said, but it isn't. I think it's a statement he would have agreed with himself, since any description of quality is a kind of definition and must therefore fall short of its mark. I think he might even have said that statements of the kind he had made, which fall short of their mark, are even worse than no statement at all, since they can be easily mistaken for truth and thus retard any understanding of quality. No, he did nothing for quality for the Tao, or the Tao, excuse me. What benefited was reason. He showed a way by which reason may be expanded to include elements that have previously been unassimilable. Oh wow, that's a fun word. UNASSIMILABLE. That word makes me want to laugh. Unassimilable. So good. And thus have been considered irrational. I think it's the overwhelming presence of these irrational elements crying for assimilation that creates the present bad quality, the chaotic, disconnected spirit of the 20th century. I want to go at these now in as orderly a manner as possible. We're on steep, mucky soil now that's hard to keep a footing in. We grab branches and shrubs to steady ourselves. I take a step, then figure where my next step will be, then take this step, then look again. Soon the brush becomes so thick, I see we will have to hack through it. It sit down. Oh, that's got to be a typo. It literally says it sit down while Chris gets the machete. So probably I sit down while Chris gets the machete from the pack on my back. He hands it to me, then hacking and chopping, I head into the brush. It's slow going. 2 or 3 branches must be cut for every step. It may go on like this for a long time. The first step down from Phaedrus's statement that quality is the Buddha is a statement that such an assertion, if true, provides a rational basis for unification of 3 areas of human experience, which are now disunified. These 3 areas are religion, art, and science. If it can be shown that quality is the central term of all 3, and that this quality is not of many kinds but of one kind only, then it follows that the 3 disunified areas have a basis for introconversion. The relationship of quality to the area of art has been shown rather exhaustively. through a pursuit of Phaedrus's understanding of quality in the art of rhetoric. I don't think much more in the way of analysis need be made there. Art is high quality endeavor. Oh, yeah. That is all that really needs to be said, or if something more high sounding is demanded. Art is the Godhead as revealed in the works of man. The relationship established by Phaedrus makes it clear that the two enormously different sounding statements are actually identical. In the area of religion, the rational relationship of quality to the Godhead needs to be more thoroughly established, and this I hope to do much more later on. Or much later on, I should say. For the time being, one can mediate on the fact that the Old English roots for the Buddha and quality, God and good, appear to be identical. It's in the area of science that I want to focus attention in the immediate future, for this is the area that most badly needs a relationship established. The dictum that science and its offspring technology are value-free, that is quality-free, has got to go. It's that value freedom that underlines the death force effect to which attention was brought early in the Chautauqua. Tomorrow I intend to start on that. For the remainder of the afternoon, we climb down over gray weathered trunks of deadfalls and angle back and forth on the steep slope. We reach a cliff angle along its edge in search of a way down, and eventually a narrow draw appears which we're able to descend. It continues down through a rocky crevice in which there is a little rivulet. Shrubs and rocks and muck and roots of huge trees watered by the rivulet fill the crevice. Then we hear the roar of a much larger creek in the distance. We cross the creek using a rope, which we leave behind. Then on the road beyond, find some other campers who give us a ride into town. In Bozeman, it's dark and late. Rather than wake up the DeWeeses and ask them to drive in, we check in at the main downtown hotel. Some tourists in the lobby stare at us. With my old army clothes, walking stick, 2-day beard, and black beret, I must look like some old-time Cuban revolutionary in for a raid. Nice. In the hotel room, we exhaustedly dump everything on the floor. Been there, done that. I empty into a wastebasket the stones picked up by my boots from the rushing water of the stream and set the boots by a cold window to dry slowly. We collapse into the beds without a word. Chapter 22. The next morning, we check out of the hotel, feeling refreshed, say goodbye to the DeWeeses, and head north on the open road out of Bozeman. The DeWeeses wanted us to stay, but a peculiar itching to move west and get on with my thoughts is taken over. I want to talk today about a person whom Phaedrus never heard of, but whose writings I've studied quite extensively in preparation for this Chautauqua. Unlike Phaedrus, this man was an international celebrity at 35, a living legend at 58, whom Bertrand Russell has described as, by general agreement, the most eminent scientific man of his generation. He was an astronomer, a physicist, a mathematician, a philosopher, all in one. His name was Jules Henry Poincaré, Poincare. It always seemed incredible to me, and still does, I guess, that Phaedrus should have traveled along a line of thought that had never been traveled before. Someone somewhere must have thought of all this before, and Phaedrus was such a poor scholar, it would have been just like him to have duplicated the commonplaces of some famous system of philosophy he hadn't taken trouble to look into. So I spent more than a year reading the very long and sometimes very tedious history of philosophy in a search for duplicate ideas. It was a fascinating way to read the history of philosophy, however, and a thing occurred of which I still don't know quite what to make. Philosophical systems that are supposed to be greatly opposed to one another both seem to be saying something very close to what Phaedrus thought, with minor variations. Time after time I thought I'd found whom he was duplicating, but each time, because of what appeared to be some slight differences, he took a greatly different direction. Hegel, for example, whom I referred to earlier, rejected Hindu systems of philosophy as no philosophy at all. Phaedrus seemed to assimilate them or be assimilated by them. There was no feeling of contradiction. Hegel is spelled Hegel. Eventually I came to Poincaré. I don't know how to say that. Here again, there was little duplication, but another kind of phenomenon. Phaedrus follows a long and tortuous path into the highest abstractions, seems about to come down and then stops. Poincaré starts with the most basic scientific verities, works up to the same abstractions, and then stops. Both trails stop right at each other's end. There is perfect continuity between them. When you live in the shadow of insanity, the appearance of another mind that thinks and talks as yours does is something close to a blessed event. Like Robinson Crusoe's discovery of footprints on the sand. Poincaré lived from 1854 to 1912, a professor at University of Paris. His beard and pince-nez, Pince-Nez, were reminiscent of Henry Toulouse-Lautrec, Toulouse-Lautrec, who lived in Paris at the time and was only 10 years younger. During Poincaré's lifetime, an alarmingly deep crisis in the foundations of the exact sciences had begun. For years, scientific truth had been beyond the possibility of a doubt. The logic of science was infallible. And if the sciences were sometimes mistaken, this was assumed to be only from their mistaking its rules. The great questions had all been answered. The mission of science was now simply to refine these answers to greater and greater accuracy. True, there were still unexplained phenomena such as radioactivity transmission of light through the ether and the peculiar relationship of magnetic to electric forces. But these, if past trends were any indication, had eventually to fall. It was hardly guessed by anyone that within a few decades there would be no more absolute space, absolute time, absolute substance, or even absolute magnitude. That classical physics, the scientific rock of ages, would become approximate. That the soberest and most respected of astronomers would be telling mankind that if it looked long enough through a telescope powerful enough, what it would see was the back of its own head. The basis of the foundation-shattering theory of relativity was as yet understood only by very few, of whom Poincaré, as the most eminent mathematician of his time, was one. In his Foundations of Science, Poincaré explained that the antecedents of the crisis in the foundations of science were very old. It had long been sought in vain, he said, to demonstrate the axiom known as Euclid's fifth postulate. And his search was the start of the crisis. Euclid's postulate of parallels, which states that through a given point there's no more than one parallel line to a given straight line. We usually learn in the 10th grade geometry. It is one of the basic building blocks out of which the entire mathematics of geometry is constructed. All the other axioms seemed so obvious as to be unquestionable, but this one did not. Yet you couldn't get rid of it without destroying huge portions of the mathematics, and no one seemed able to reduce it to anything more elementary. What vast effort had been wasted in that chimeric hope was truly unimaginable, Poincaré said. Finally, in the first quarter of the 19th century, and almost at the same time, a Hungarian and a Russian, Bolyai, Bolyai, and Lobachevsky, Lobachevsky, established irrefutably that a proof of Euclid's fifth postulate is impossible. They did this by reasoning that if there were any way to reduce Euclid's postulate to other, surer axioms, another effect would also be noticeable. A reversal of Euclid's postulate would create logical contradictions in the geometry, so they reversed Euclid's postulate. Don't go, honey, get gay, we ain't a good shot, till we meet again, love you, mean it.